Most people think lowering blood pressure requires years of strict dieting and exhausting exercise daily. But what if the solution takes just 5 minutes of your time every single day? This is what recent cardiac science research reveals about managing blood pressure effectively and safely. Blood pressure management has confused people for years with vague advice about exercise and diet. Nobody explains what actually works or why it matters so much for your health. The science shows specific, actionable steps that genuinely reduce blood pressure quickly and measurably. A leading cardiac scientist spent years researching exactly how to lower blood pressure effectively. His laboratory studies uncovered surprising findings that challenge what most people believe about health. The results might shock you and completely change your entire approach to cardiovascular wellness. Most doctors recommend the same generic advice without explaining the real mechanisms behind pressure. People nod along but never implement because the guidance feels too vague and overwhelming. What matters is understanding both what to do and exactly why it actually works. Blood pressure sits as the leading modifiable risk factor for heart disease across the world. It is not about genetics or fate, it is about specific choices you make daily. Small changes compound into massive cardiovascular improvements over time, backed by solid research data. The conversation about blood pressure has shifted dramatically in recent years as new evidence emerged. Scientists discovered that previous guidelines were not aggressive enough in treating elevated pressure effectively. What was considered acceptable 5 years ago is now recognized as dangerously high today. In 2017, major medical organizations completely changed blood pressure guidelines for everyone. The old standard was 140/90, which many doctors still reference incorrectly today. New evidence showed that treating to 120/80 produces far better health outcomes. Most people don't realize that even small blood pressure reductions create measurable health improvements. A decrease of just 5 to 7 millimeters of mercury changes mortality statistics significantly. This means someone can literally add years to their life through simple everyday interventions. The optimal blood pressure range appears to be around 100/60 based on research. This doesn't mean you need pharmaceutical medications to achieve these numbers consistently and safely. Non-pharmaceutical approaches often work just as powerfully as first-line blood pressure medications do today. Diet plays an enormous role in blood pressure management, but most guidance remains vague. People here eat healthy without understanding what foods actually reduce blood pressure specifically now. The science points to very specific dietary approaches that work remarkably well for everyone. The DASH diet, which stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension, has strong evidence. It is not restrictive or complicated, it is about emphasizing specific foods and avoiding others. Understanding this framework transforms how you approach grocery shopping and meal planning completely daily. Sodium intake represents one of the most impactful dietary levers for blood pressure control. Most people consume 2 to 3 times the recommended daily amount without realizing it. Reducing sodium by even small amounts creates measurable improvements in blood pressure within weeks. Potassium intake works opposite to sodium by helping your body regulate blood pressure naturally. Most processed foods contain excessive sodium, but lack the potassium that offsets its effects. Simply eating more whole foods automatically increases potassium while reducing sodium simultaneously and effectively. Low-fat dairy products contain compounds that benefit blood vessels and support cardiovascular health generally. They provide protein that keeps you satisfied while avoiding excess calories that harm pressure. Including moderate amounts of low-fat yogurt or cheese supports your blood pressure goals well. The foods highest in potassium include leafy greens, potatoes, beans, bananas, and oranges. These are not exotic or expensive, they are accessible foods most people already enjoy eating. Prioritizing these foods creates the dietary foundation for better blood pressure control naturally and easily. Saturated fat reduction matters less than sodium reduction, but still influences cardiovascular health meaningfully. The goal is not eliminating fat entirely, but choosing better sources of dietary fat. Focusing on whole foods automatically reduces the worst types of saturated fats and processed. But here is where the science gets truly surprising and challenges conventional fitness wisdom. Exercise matters for blood pressure, But not all exercise works equally for reducing pressure. Some unexpected forms of training produce dramatically larger reductions than traditional cardiovascular exercise does. A major meta-analysis examining every exercise type found shocking results that surprised researchers everywhere. Walking, running, cycling, and traditional aerobic training all reduced blood pressure modestly and consistently. But isometric exercise training produced the largest blood pressure reductions of all exercise types. Isometric exercise means holding a muscle contraction without movement, which sounds incredibly simple. Yet this simple approach outperformed the expensive gym memberships and running regimens most do. The mechanism behind this is rooted in how blood vessels adapt to sustained pressure. When performing isometric exercise, blood pressure rises dramatically within the muscles being worked hard. This sustained elevation and pressure against artery walls creates adaptations in vessel function. The vessels learn to handle pressure better and regulate blood pressure more efficiently overall. Isometric hand grip training represents one of the most accessible and affordable options available today. A hand grip trainer costs less than $20 on any online shopping platform easily. Performing this exercise just 3 times weekly creates measurable blood pressure reductions in weeks. The protocol involves squeezing the hand grip at roughly 50% of maximum strength hard. You hold this contraction for 2 minutes continuously, without releasing the grip throughout time. The last 30 seconds should feel uncomfortable, your hand should feel almost numb from pressure. Then you switch hands and repeat the same protocol with your other hand completely. The entire routine takes less than 5 minutes from start to finish every single time. Performing this 3 times weekly matches blood pressure reductions seen with some medications safely. Wall squats represent another isometric exercise that works similarly but requires more stability space. You stand with your back against a wall and slide down until thighs parallel. Holding this position for 2 minutes creates intense pressure in your leg muscles effectively. The beauty of isometric training is that it is simple, affordable, and requires equipment. You can perform these exercises at home while watching television or working on tasks. No expensive gym memberships or complicated routines, just pure, effective blood pressure reduction methods. But even more surprising than isometric training is an emerging technique gaining scientific attention. Inspiratory muscle training means strengthening the muscles you use for breathing every single day. This simple practice might be one of the most powerful interventions available for pressure. Inspiratory muscle training uses a specialized breathing device that provides resistance against inhalation efforts. The device costs $50 to $100 depending on whether you want tracking. Research shows that 5 to 10 minutes daily reduces blood pressure dramatically and consistently. The clinical results are genuinely remarkable and rival pharmaceutical blood pressure medications in effectiveness. Young healthy adults see reductions of 4 to 6 millimeters of mercury from training. Older adults with sleep apnea see reductions of 12 to 15 millimeters, which is a 5 to 7% reduction in systolic blood pressure might seem small numerically. But this translates to meaningful improvements in mortality risk and cardiovascular disease prevention later. Multiple independent trials at different research institutions have confirmed these findings repeatedly and consistently. How does breathing training achieve these remarkable results when it seems so incredibly simple? One mechanism involves activating your parasympathetic nervous system, which naturally reduces blood pressure. Your breathing patterns directly influence your autonomic nervous system in profound ways most never. Another mechanism involves the sheer stress created by blood flowing against artery walls constantly. This blood flow creates pressure against the endothelial layer inside your vessels, which adapts. The adaptations improve endothelial function, which is critical for proper blood pressure regulation. A third proposed mechanism involves special sensors in your neck called baroreceptors detecting pressure. These sensors become more sensitive and adaptive through repeated stimulation from breathing training protocols. Better baroreceptor sensitivity means improved ability to regulate blood pressure in response to stress. This brings us to one of the most important concepts in cardiovascular health everywhere. Endothelial function refers to how well your blood vessel linings work to regulate flow. Poor endothelial function creates stiffness and constriction, which elevates blood pressure and damages. Nitric oxide represents the critical molecule responsible for keeping your blood vessels relaxed. When nitric oxide levels are high, blood vessels relax and open wider, lowering pressure. When nitric oxide is low, vessels constrict and blood pressure rises, harming cardiovascular. The more nitric oxide available, the better your endothelium functions and the lower pressure. Dietary nitrate from specific foods converts to nitrite, then finally converts to nitric. This whole process happens naturally in your body when you eat the right foods. Beetroot juice contains high amounts of dietary nitrate that converts to nitric oxide. The dose that works best is about 5 millimeters of nitrate daily in research. This equals approximately 1 shot glass of concentrated beetroot juice, or 8 ounces. Liquid organic beetroot juice works just as well as expensive pre-made shots costing $3. A bottle costs about $3 at most grocery stores, providing multiple servings easily. This costs roughly $1 daily compared to expensive supplements that do not work. Consuming 4 to 5 ounces of beetroot juice daily takes just minutes to prepare. Mix it with water if the taste bothers you, or drink it straight. The benefits accumulate gradually, showing up within days to weeks of consistent consumption. Beyond beetroot juice, all nitrate-rich foods support your endothelial function and blood pressure. Dark leafy greens contain nitrates naturally, as do celery, spinach, and numerous vegetables. Eating these foods provides a sustainable approach to boosting nitric oxide without supplements. The dietary approach addresses the foundation of blood vessel health from multiple angles. Reducing sodium prevents fluid retention and allows vessels to function better overall consistently. Increasing potassium allows your kidneys to excrete excess sodium more efficiently and effectively. Consuming nitrate-rich foods supports the nitric oxide production that keeps vessels relaxed open. Low saturated fat intake prevents inflammation and allows vessels to maintain their flexibility health. These multiple approaches work synergistically to improve your overall cardiovascular and blood pressure. But diet alone does not create optimal results. The exercise component is absolutely critical. The specific combination of isometric work and breathing training creates more dramatic results. Adding dietary improvements to these exercise protocols creates comprehensive blood pressure control. Sleep quality represents another powerful factor that influences blood pressure but gets overlooked. A single bad night of sleep elevates blood pressure measurably and noticeably next. Chronic sleep deprivation creates sustained elevation in blood pressure that compounds over time. Stress management directly influences blood pressure through hormonal pathways that activate sympathetic system. When stressed, your body releases hormones that increase heart rate and vessel constriction. Chronic stress creates sustained elevation in blood pressure that damages your cardiovascular system. The psychological aspects of blood pressure control deserve far more attention than they. Depression and anxiety independently predict worse blood pressure control and higher cardiovascular disease. Managing mental health is not separate from managing blood pressure. They are intimately connected. Exercise itself provides stress relief and mood improvement that reduce blood pressure through. Walking for 30 minutes daily improves mental health while also providing cardiovascular benefits. The combination of psychological and physical benefits makes exercise uniquely valuable for pressure. But here is an important detail about aerobic exercise that surprises many people. Walking, jogging, and cycling reduce blood pressure by only 2 to 4 millimeters. This is helpful but far less effective than isometric training or breathing work. For people with existing hypertension, aerobic exercise reduces blood pressure by 5-8. This is respectable but still less than what focused isometric training or breathing. The meta-analysis data strongly suggests prioritizing isometric training if you must choose. Resistance training reduces blood pressure by similar amounts to aerobic training in research. The combination of aerobic and resistance training does not add benefits, it plateaus. This suggests there is a threshold effect where additional exercise volume provides diminishing. Salt consumption affects blood pressure through multiple mechanisms beyond just increasing blood volume. Excess sodium creates inflammation in your blood vessels and harms endothelial function directly. Even if your blood pressure does not rise immediately, arterial damage accumulates silently. The research shows that endothelial function worsens with high salt intake before pressure. This means damage is occurring even when blood pressure readings seem normal on. Prevention through lower sodium intake protects your vessel health far more than treating. Salt sensitivity varies considerably between individuals based on genetics and overall metabolic health. Some people's blood pressure rises dramatically with salt, while others show minimal response. But regardless of sensitivity, all people experience some vessel damage from chronic salt. If you exercise extensively and sweat, you might wonder if salt loss offsets. The calculations show that you would need hours of heavy sweating in heat. Unless you are an athlete training intensively in hot weather regularly, sweating will. The ideal approach is simply maintaining moderate sodium intake rather than trying offset. Reading labels and choosing whole foods naturally provides sodium control without conscious restriction. Most processed foods contain the problematic sodium levels, so avoiding them solves problem. Sudden spikes in sodium from single meals do not create lasting damage. The research shows that even high-sodium single meals do not harm cardiovascular. But maintaining consistently high sodium intake over weeks and years creates progressive vessel. This suggests that occasional indulgence during vacations or special meals will not derail. But the daily choices about what you eat matter enormously because consistency. Making good choices most days is far more important than perfection every single. Caffeine's effect on blood pressure depends heavily on individual factors and tolerance. People who do not regularly consume caffeine show larger blood pressure increases when regular caffeine users develop tolerance and show minimal blood pressure effects over time. Older adults tend to experience larger blood pressure increases from caffeine compared young. This suggests that caffeine tolerance decreases with age, making moderation more important. If you struggle with blood pressure, reducing caffeine might be worth attempting observe. But if caffeine provides the motivation to exercise, the benefits might outweigh pressure. The trade-off between caffeine's stimulation effect and mild pressure elevation deserves individual. Do not eliminate caffeine automatically. Instead, test your response and adjust accordingly based. Blood glucose control directly influences endothelial function and blood pressure through multiple pathways. High glucose causes inflammation and oxidative stress that damage blood vessels and reduce. Managing blood glucose through diet and exercise protects your endothelial function and pressure. The triglyceride glucose index combined with waist circumference provides a simple assessment tool metabolic. These measurements predict cardiovascular risk and blood pressure control better than body weight. Measuring waist circumference with tape is cheap and provides valuable information about health. Body composition matters more than total weight when evaluating cardiovascular disease and pressure. Two people at identical weight can have completely different health outcomes based on central obesity around the abdomen creates more metabolic dysfunction than fat distributed elsewhere. Waist-to-hip ratio predicts mortality risk and cardiovascular complications better than index. You can measure this yourself with a simple tape measure at home expense. Measure at your largest hip circumference and smallest waist point. Then calculate ratio. People with high central obesity show worse reflex function that regulates blood pressure. This reflects dysfunction in the autonomic nervous system controlling blood vessel constriction dilation. Losing weight from central obesity improves these reflex pathways and blood pressure control. The good news is that weight loss does not need to be dramatic. Even modest weight reductions improve blood vessel function and blood pressure control measurably. Consistency matters more than achieving perfect weight. Small improvements compound significantly over time. The duration of obesity matters significantly for determining if damage is reversible permanent. Someone who gained weight recently might recover normal function quickly with weight loss. Someone obese for decades might have more permanent vascular changes requiring longer intervention. This does not mean giving up on weight loss after years of high. It simply means expecting faster recovery in recent onset obesity compared to lifelong obesity. Both benefit from weight loss, just on different timescales for complete functional recovery. Excess adipose tissue produces inflammatory chemicals that damage endothelial function and elevate pressure. Reducing body fat decreases inflammation and improves vessel function independent of weight alone. Even maintaining weight while improving body composition through exercise benefits blood pressure control. This is why two thin people can have different blood pressure readings despite body composition, fitness level, and metabolic health create more variation than scale weight. Focusing on what you can measure and change fitness, strength, endurance often improves indirectly. Oxidative stress from excess dietary polyunsaturated fat oxidation damages blood vessels endothelial. While seed oils themselves are not inherently problematic, consuming oxidized oils damages health. Limiting consumption of heated and oxidized polyunsaturated fats protects endothelial function and pressure. The research on oxidative stress in the context of vascular dysfunction remains incomplete. Scientists are actively studying how exercise training mitigates oxidative stress and improves vessel. These mechanisms are becoming clearer as research continues with more detailed investigations daily. Dairy products contain compounds beyond fat and protein that might benefit vascular health. Studies show that cheese consumption, even high-sodium cheese, benefits endothelial function compared to salt. These dairy compounds might include conjugated linoleic acid or other protective substances milk. The evidence on dairy remains mixed with some studies showing benefit while others, like many foods, consuming dairy in moderation as part of a varied diet. Avoiding dogmatic claims about dairy being universally good or bad reflects scientific honesty. The blood pressure guidelines changed in 2017 based on accumulating evidence. Studies showed that treating to lower targets prevented cardiovascular events and extended life. These changes reflected genuine scientific progress in understanding what blood pressure targets optimize. The previous 140/90 standard left people at continued risk despite appearing. Treating more aggressively to 130/80 prevented strokes and heart attacks more. The data convinced major medical organizations to revise guidelines despite initial resistance some. The new guidelines represent better medicine based on evidence rather than tradition convenience. Many doctors still reference old guidelines because changing practice patterns takes time education. As patients, understanding current evidence allows you to advocate for your own health. If your doctor is not aware of current blood pressure guidelines, you share. This conversation positions you as an informed patient rather than a passive recipient. Informed patients get better medical care because they ask better questions and understand. Achieving optimal blood pressure often does not require medications if you are willing. The non-pharmaceutical approaches discussed produce results matching first-line blood pressure medications many. Combining these approaches often allows reducing medication doses or eliminating medications entirely safely. Obviously, anyone on blood pressure medications should consult their doctor before major changes. Never stop medications abruptly, as sudden withdrawal creates dangerous blood pressure spikes some. Instead, work with your doctor to gradually reduce medications as lifestyle changes take. The cost-benefit analysis of lifestyle changes heavily favors implementation over waiting medications. Breathing training costs $50 to $100 for a device lasting years. 5 to 10 minutes daily produces health benefits matching expensive medications with outside. Isometric hand grip training costs less than $20 and produces substantial benefits consistency. These approaches require initial purchase but generate benefits for years without ongoing medication. The financial case for lifestyle changes is strong even before considering health improvements. The time investment required is minimal compared to potential health benefits and prevention. 10 minutes daily for breathing training pales in comparison to hospital visits complications. Preventing cardiovascular events is far easier and cheaper than treating them after occurrence. Starting slowly with 1 or 2 interventions is better than attempting everything simultaneously. You might begin with dietary sodium reduction and breathing training, which are foundational. Adding isometric exercise once you develop consistency with breathing work creates sustainable success. Tracking your blood pressure progress provides motivation as you see improvements from lifestyle. Home blood pressure monitors cost $30 to $50 and provide accurate readings. Measuring weekly creates a record showing how interventions affect your individual blood pressure. Most people see measurable improvements within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent implementation. Some people respond more dramatically while others see gradual changes over months' consistency. Individual variation is normal. What matters is consistent effort regardless of speed response. The psychological benefit of taking control of your health equals the physiological benefits. Knowing you are actively improving your cardiovascular health creates motivation and empowerment. This psychological aspect often becomes the difference between short-term changes and lasting transformation. Creating accountability through tracking, telling others about your goals, or finding partners helps. Sharing your health journey with someone creates external motivation supporting your internal. Community and social support dramatically increase the likelihood of success over time significantly. The science is clear that blood pressure control is absolutely achievable through lifestyle. The research shows benefits rival medications in effectiveness while improving overall health. What remains is translating this knowledge into consistent daily action that compounds. Your cardiovascular system responds to what you do today, this week, this month. Every single day offers a new opportunity to make choices supporting better pressure. Small, consistent choices create the foundation for decades of improved cardiovascular health longevity. The journey to optimal blood pressure does not require perfection or exotic interventions. It requires commitment to simple practices done consistently. Breathing work, modest exercise, dietary. These foundational approaches transform blood pressure in weeks, while improving overall health dramatically. Your doctor remains your partner in this process, providing medical expertise monitoring. But you hold the primary power through your daily choices about diet exercise. Taking responsibility for these choices creates health outcomes exceeding what medications alone achieve. The evidence, the mechanisms, and the practical approaches all align around proven lifestyle. Breathing training, isometric exercise, dietary improvements, and sleep optimization create the formula. Implementation requires only commitment. The knowledge and tools are available right now, today.